the screenings are brought to you by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, as well as the Office of Public Diplomacy at Image Nation Abu Dhabi. My name's Hana Maaki. I'm the head of documentary at Image Nation Abu Dhabi, and I'm also the director and producer of the film that you just saw as one. We're going to have a very exciting and I hope enlightening discussion tonight. I want to welcome our esteemed panel that we have with us this evening. First of all, His Excellency Fahad Raqbani, the UAE Ambassador to Canada. Welcome and good afternoon in Ottawa. And then, of course, we have the Honourable Mike Lake, Member of Parliament to Edmonton Wetaskiwin, and of course, welcome to his son Jaden. Very, very glad to have you here. And of course, a good friend, and you've just seen her in the film, lovely Sharifa Yateen. Sharifa is the first Emirati to be board certified behavior analyst. Welcome, Sharifa. Lovely to see you today.
And you too.
Before we begin the discussion, what I'd like to do is go to what I feel personally is the most important part of any documentary, and that is the subject of the film. In this film, it is 10 stars, and I'm going to, let's see what happens, but I'm going to share my screen and give a recap on some of them, where they are now, because what you have to realize is the film was filmed back in 2013. For me, it seems like yesterday, but for children, that's quite a long time. And yeah, let me just share my screen and share a video that we did.
I miss you too, because I'm big already. I'm 16 years old. Yeah. Maybe there's no coronavirus. I will see Hana in the outside. Okay. Thank you. Enjoy the day. Bye.
Okay, how fantastic is that? So I just want to give everybody an update on where everybody is. So. And some of those kids who I'm going to update on appear in the video, some don't. You'll know from the film Saif al-Qubaisi, you know, best friends with Al-Kindi. Saif is now 16 years old, an advocate himself of inclusion. He appears at many public speaking events here in the UAE. And last year at the Special Olympics, he won bronze in the golf tournament. So Mabruk Saif, congratulations. Gabby, who you saw in that video, beautiful Gabby, it's her birthday today. So I just want to say happy birthday. Everybody say happy birthday to Gabby.
Happy birthday, Gabby.
Birthday.
Gabby's 13, she's in grade 8. Gabby's mom just told me she loves swimming and cycling, and now she's a big sister to her new baby brother. Also, you saw in those photographs Abdullah. Abdullah in the film loves technology. Abdullah is, he wrote to me himself and told me, I'm 16 years old and I am currently in 11th grade and it is quite stressful. And you know, Abdullah, 11th grade is stressful for all of us. It was stressful for all of us, no doubt. So what he does, Abdullah gets up very early in the morning and exercises, and he finds that helps him cope with his studies. I was super impressed because how many 16-year-olds do you know get up at early in the morning to exercise before the day starts? So well done, Abdullah. Also, you saw Carl in the video. Carl, I miss you too. And he is, I saw a wonderful video earlier. Carl is a great painter, a really, really talented painter, and is doing very well. another photo you saw in that selection, you may mistakenly think it was Fethi from the film, but it's actually his younger brother Omar, who is now the same age as Fethi was when he was in the film, but he's a spitting image. So thank you to her, his mom, for sending that photo over. And last but not least, I heard from Kira, Asher's mom. Asher is now in Utah, and he is 12 years old, still full of joy. Asher is an avid football player, basketball player, martial arts player, does yoga, and does meditation.
Wow.
So what can you say? You're very, very impressive. So it brings a huge joy to my heart that Asher is, and all the other kids are doing so well. And, you know, when you see them develop, you know, and get older, it makes you think that, you know, we have so many wonderful institutions, schools, centers here in the UAE that support children with autism. But, you know, the question on every parent's mind is always what happens, what's going to happen when they get older, what happens when they become adults. A very important question. And Sharifa, can I ask you to shed some light on that for us? What happens here in the UAE?
Well, I just want to start off taking this opportunity to thank you for inviting me to be part of this really important discussion. And watching this documentary always brings back this wonderful memories and emotions that reminds me why I started this journey from the first place. That was back in 2014. And when we are looking, you know, from an outside point of view, when we're looking at youth and adults with autism, I think generally speaking, throughout these years, I've noticed that there are very few peer-reviewed journals that are focusing on that population in general, especially with youth, adults, and elderlies with autism. So I think this is the best opportunity to call for more research within this particular age group, because a lot of people think that autism is only for, you know, it's a childhood disorder and they'll grow out of it, or some of these myths that we hear a lot. So definitely in each stage of their lives, they definitely need some support. When we're looking at UAE, you know, going back since we started the documentary until now, UAE has been the leading country in this region to ensure the rights of people with special needs are met. And not only we have seen more initiatives and policies being changed and you know, becoming much more integrating special needs in all policies, generally speaking, but there has been also a shift of culture within the families, schools, and organizations. You know, this is a demanding challenge, and we all know a shift of culture doesn't happen in one day. And due to the great leadership that we have here, this ripple effect has been very positive for the families' experiences. Now, when we're looking at NGOs, we definitely see an increase in NGOs focusing on adults and special needs, that are advocating to increase their skills and their emotional, pre-employment skills, or you know, finding employment opportunities. Now with COVID, I don't know how things are going, but definitely there was like a good high peak going, you know, trending upwards. As we know, with an increase of prevalences of autism, there is no doubt we need more training centers focusing on building employment skills, empowering organizations to find the right ways that is fit with the individual's needs, more kind of transitioning adults or youth from sheltered vocational skills, let's say, or finding that, you know, plan of transition from the school to employment or university. So we know that we have those different organizations ready to, you know, look into the individual needs, but I think it's important that we look into the transitioning aspect of it to prepare them and, you know, make them more eligible to be part of those different organizations. Similarly, I think it would be interesting, as I find a lot of discussions around alternative diploma courses. not just the typical mainstream, you know, the diploma that we see in high school diploma, but I think it's important also to expand in that so that it can fit everyone's needs. Additionally, I've seen families and students getting accepted to universities and colleges. However, it's very important that we use that opportunity to match their talents and what they're learning from university and connect it to the economy, labor market. And I think that's the bridge. Again, going back to that bridging, that transitioning bridging, I think that is so important to kind of bridge that gap between those two different milestones in anyone's lives. And of course, this couldn't happen with the right legislations and guidelines from the top to bottom. And that will definitely enhance the progression that we're seeing in the United Arab Emirates.
Very interesting, Sharifa, and a lot to think about, a lot to consider. Mike, if I can go to you, and if I can go to Jaden as well. As we can see, Mike is not just a member of parliament, Mike is also a father. Jaden is, I believe, 25, is that correct?
Did you just, how old are you? How old are you? 25, right? Yeah.
25, okay. So as a parent, and obviously in your work, you're incredibly well known, both you and Jaden, for your work surrounding autism awareness. Can you give the audience a little bit of background about that journey you and Jaden have been on, you know, and where you see things going?
Yeah, for sure. You know, so I was elected in 2006 for the first time. So Jaden was 9 years old. Were you 9 when Daddy was elected, right? And when I got involved in politics, it wasn't because of autism. It was because of other things. But realized soon afterwards that we had a platform, and because of what I do, Jaden has a platform as well. And as we've had that opportunity to kind of embrace the platform and use it and figure out exactly how we wanted to use it, as people have engaged more and more with Jaden, and Jaden's nonverbal, but he can write usually simple words. You like to write things, and you use a computer to talk, right? Sometimes. As we've communicated, Jaden really is the star of the show. He would have a difficult time communicating to you right now if I wasn't here, because he's nonverbal. The way I like to think of it is we all need help at some time in our lives, and Jaden does sometimes for his skills and abilities to be unlocked. But really, we've focused a lot on sharing Jaden's story, not just talking about the challenges that he faces, but also talking about his unique skills and abilities, because it's really easy to underestimate Jaden. And so this is something that we've been doing now for almost 15 years. And Jaden loves coming and hanging out. He's a little bit tired. It's actually morning here where we are in Edmonton, Alberta, in Canada. And so he's a little bit tired in the mornings, but he loves to hear us tell stories. And so really looking forward to taking part in the conversation today. You know, watching the documentary was really important for us. Jaden loved when he was in grade 10 in school, when he was 16 years old. Were you in musical theater, right? So some of the kids at his school, he was included in a regular classroom, had a full-time aide. And some of the kids in his school thought, you know what, Jaden could be involved in our musical theater performance. So he was involved 3 years in a row in musical theater and absolutely loved it. And the cool thing about it is, because he was included and because they got a chance to get to know him, they got a chance to challenge him. And in the first year, he just did group scenes. But in the second year, he did Bye Bye Birdie, and it was a little bit different dynamic. He was in a little bit more of the choreographed scenes and things like that. And in the last year, he even took on a greater role. And it was really cool to see these students in the school further challenge him every year. Okay?
Right. And do you like performance? Do you still like performance, Jaden? How do you feel about it?
Do you like theater? And do you like music? Yeah. Did we sing the other day for your birthday? We did, right?
Oh.
And we shared that on social media. And when we share, whose birthday was it?
Gabby's
Gabby.
birthday.
Okay, why don't we, do you want to sing happy birthday to Gabby really quickly? Okay, I'm a terrible singer, but you're going to notice he likes to sing along. So Jaden, do you want to sing? So to Gabby, who we saw earlier. Okay, ready? Okay, let's go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gabby. Happy birthday to you.
Yay! That's so special. I'm sure Gabby loves that. Thank you. Thank you, Jaden. Appreciate it. This quest, you know, in a way, this huge effort that you do with autism awareness. Fahad, if I could go to you. We recently had last year the Special Olympics here in Abu Dhabi, obviously an important event. And I believe you were involved in Ottawa as well. Could you tell us a little bit about how important that event was for the UAE?
Well, thank you, Hana. Let me begin by thanking Imagination, thanking the Office of Public and Cultural Diplomacy at the Ministry, thanking you, Mike, for being here with us today, Sharifa. You know, I'm very pleased. I'd also like to, welcome the Canadian officials and members of Parliament who are with us today. We've invited quite a big number, and I'm sure we have quite a number from them attending. So, talking about the Special Olympics, which we've hosted last year, we've had 200 nations participate, 7,000 athletes, more than 20,000 volunteers. Nations which we didn't have, diplomatic ties with. It's the first time that this event has been hosted in the Middle East and the MENA region. What's the message that the UAE is starting to, or the UAE wanted to send across? It's, we're all in this together. The people of determination, or the determined. When Sheikh Mohammed changed, people with special needs to the determined in 2017, that was for a specific reason. It's to show the importance and recognize the achievements which the determined have in our society, in the different fronts, whether it's in public service, whether it's in sports, as well as cultural, as well as others. When I saw what you put together, the movie as one, seeing the 3-month project, bringing 10 kids together, none of them knew the other, probably with the exception to Al-Kindi and his friend, Saif, I think.
Yeah.
Looking at the documentary till the end when they were on stage, seeing how those kids evolved, listening to you, Hana, earlier in the discussion, when this was done in 2013 and where each of them is right now, whether he's in college, whether he's in high school, whether he loves yoga or practicing or this is, very touching. I think when I met Team Canada before they left Abu Dhabi, I was blown away by, how these kids are smart. I mean, Mike, you said something very important. I think we all need support in something, It's not like, if you have an autistic child or if you have a child with, with another disability, I mean, there's nothing to be shy of. There is no mistake here. This could have happened to any one of us. But the more important factor, I think, is what do we do with that? I believe societies become stronger when they take care of people who need support. I mean, these kids, or, they are kids now, but one day they'll become adults. What did we do for them in order to prepare them for their adult life? How do we teach them, to stand up, to stand on their feet? How do we teach them, or how do we give them the skills and the requirements that allow them to function and be looked at as normal? These are normal kids. These are normal people. They are no different than us. I mean, we're all human beings after all. And I think what we need is, we need to take care of each other because of the humanity that we share. When, why did the UAE host this, the Special Olympics 2019? Why did we invite countries which we didn't have relations with, including Israel, for example, which participated. It's because, it's about inclusion. It's about, you cannot deny kids or, athletes from participating at a tournament just because, you don't have ties with them or you don't, you don't recognize them. Got to separate things. Politics is one thing, but humanity is what brings us all together. This is what I wanted to leave you with.
Okay, thank you for that. And absolutely, I think we're all in agreement. When the phrase "people of determination" came out, it was a huge impact, I think, on the whole of the UAE. And of course, I live in Abu Dhabi. We really all felt the Special Olympics. It was an amazing, time here for the whole city. Sharifa, I know you were involved as well. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you? Having the Special Olympics here, you're involved in the autism community. I mean, what did you feel the impact was of having that here?
I think the biggest news when they told us that it's going to be hosted in Abu Dhabi, I thought that was perfect, because we come with a culture that we like to be involved in and accept everyone and be included as much as possible. And I think the biggest change that I've seen is the shift of culture and perceptions towards individuals with special needs. I mean, families themselves now feel more empowered to take their children out in public, places that you might not hear of, that, you have a child sitting next to you in a restaurant, as simple as that. As well, like places where families are now talking to their members and their own family about their child's condition. And that is itself, empowering the parent and empowering the individual themselves to say, it's okay, everyone has their own different needs, and additionally to that, individuals themselves feel valued and feel confident that they too can contribute something to the society, whether it's through sports, whether it's through arts, whether it's through academics, whether it's through anything that they are, really good at. And I think that applies to everyone. And I am so impressed, to be honest, of the projects that have been applied after the Special Olympics. And a lot of people were doubting that once the Special Olympics is done, no one's going to talk about it again. And I would hear that negative comments everywhere, but it proved us wrong. We've seen amazing projects coming out of the Special Olympics based here in the UAE. And I was actually invited to be a judge for a project, an initiative called Robotics for All, and in which mainstream schools were competing to creating this robot. Okay, so everyone came together and we had to judge and evaluate not only their creative ways to create a robot, but how they came up with including their student or peer with special needs in their project. So every school had to have this group together with a student with special needs. And I thought that was so creative to embed inclusion in schools, which now it became a competition between schools. How were you better than the other school in inclusion? How were you able to include your friend and be part of, the projects that schools do? And I was so impressed, to be honest, seeing parents themselves cheering their kids with special needs in the auditorium, and, students coming up with awesome ideas. It was just beautiful. I really, really enjoyed those different projects, and it's still going on. I can't even, stop talking about it. But definitely, it was great even to have the opportunity to meet with the UAE athletes of the Special Olympics to discuss their experience, their, even their family's perspective and their perspective themselves. A lot of them came to me and said, you know what, I can say that I'm from special needs now, or I'm actually people of determination, I'm determined. So you see that love and that change in their voices and their eyes and the way they speak about it now. You know, it's not like how it was, you know, few years ago, just few years ago. And it's just so impressive, the jump that I've seen. So I just want to personally thank the team behind Special Olympics for continuing the legacy after hosting the Special Olympics in Abu Dhabi in March 2019. And of course, thanks to all the leaders that made this happen and all the team behind them. You know, it's just incredible. And, it, you know, until today, people talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an amazing event, and I'm glad to hear that you're still seeing the positive impact. That's fantastic. We just got a question in the chat that I just want to bring in at this point, and it is, I'm just going to read: how do we ensure that people of determination are incorporated into our societies after they are done with their schooling? Are there examples of how this is being done in the UAE and in Canada? So I will go to anybody who wants to answer that question from the chat. Any volunteers?
I'll weigh in if that's okay. You know, first of all, I will say, and Jaden looks like he's resting now as I'm speaking, but as I was listening to Sharifa talk about Special Olympics, there are multiple ways that that people can be included, and Special Olympics has moved into a sort of a unified, I think they call it, sports, where they have Special Olympians competing with kids that aren't part of the Special Olympics movement or don't have developmental disability or anything like that. Playing together on teams. And I've had the opportunity as a member of parliament to play soccer on the hill in sort of one of these games. And it's just fantastic. In Jaden's case, Jaden bowls in Special Olympics, but as he was younger growing up, he was bowling in a youth league up until he was 21. And it wasn't a Special Olympics league, it was a regular youth league. I think the more that we get it right in terms of inclusion at an international level, hardwired into our education systems, you know, you then anything that anybody knows is having their normal includes people like Jaden. A perfect example, my daughter at 13 years old, she was asked by an interview one time, she's 3 years younger than Jaden, and she said at 13 even, she was asked, do you ever wish your brother was quote unquote normal like every other kid? And her answer was so smart. It was, you know, honestly, since Jaden was diagnosed with autism before I was born, I don't exactly know what a normal brother is like. So Jaden kind of is my normal having autism. And that answer is where we need to get. You know, Jaden's school, the kids didn't know anything else. And, you know, you think you're putting Jaden in that school for Jaden's benefit, and certainly Jaden got benefit from it. But to a person, those students come out of the school system saying that having Jaden in their class made them better. I would say having Jaden as a son has made me a better person, a better parliamentarian, and better in a lot of ways. But if we hardwire that into our education system, we've got a lot of work to do in the workplaces, vocational system as well. But if we hardwire it into the education system, then we just carry that momentum through, because every single person will come out of the education system having experienced life with people who are a little bit different than them. And again, I just hammer home as I'm closing on this, is that we're all different in some way. We all have idiosyncrasies. We all have things that we're really good at and things that we're not so good at. And people with autism, someone like Jaden is very much that same way. But again, you spend your lives as students, if we get a chance to spend that time with people who are a little bit different than us, we're going to respond differently, and we're going to be better as adults and more inclusive as adults as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Totally
I
agree.
want to also add to what Mike said. I definitely agree with that. You know, it starts within schools and education systems, and you start with, you know, young kids, you know, being one-day leaders, and hopefully they themselves become involved in policies changes and opening opportunities for adults to be involved in the work placement, having, you know, hopefully in each company, a special needs support department, or whether it's in BNF, where it's hospitality, or in hotels, or in universities. I think nowadays we're seeing more and more of this, but I definitely think that a lot of the companies are a bit scared or worried that they don't know how to deal with situations that might arise when the adult with special needs might find it challenging at some social demand. And I think having more professionals in the field will definitely help, in collaboration with mainstream organizations and leaders, to put those guidelines together, to put those trainings, on the field trainings. Opening opportunities is such an important part, because around the world, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, that we see a good, nice climbing, the child is progressing nicely, and then once they graduate from school, the parent is left with, where should I go? And there's like a slop down, and that's the sloppy, scary, slope. And so many families, I would kind of talk about, as Mike mentioned, look at the strengths. What are the things that your child likes to do, instead of going like, where are the opportunities that I can just push my kid into? And I think it's important that we look into that. We look into the strengths of the individual themselves, like any other person. I'm always surprised, like, we need to talk about this. This happens anyways. Why does a label need to be, a barrier for people to recognize the strengths? So I think definitely for that parent that asked that question, I think it's important that first you look at what your child likes to do, and then go after those things. I think so.
Yeah, I agree. I remember, Sharifa, when we were making the documentary, now I'm listening to you, we brought 6 teachers together, and none of them had ever dealt with a scenario where they would have 10 children with autism together. And I clearly remember, as soon as we brought you and you gave them the training, and you gave them the tools, and you gave them the knowledge, it worked, and as you say, bringing professionals into the right spheres in the workplace, I'm sure would, of course, reap the same rewards. In terms of, oh, here we are, another question. Okay, sorry, I'm going to go back to the chat, because I think it's very important to answer parents' questions. Fahad, this question has come directly for you. How important and how can we improve infrastructure in our cities to make them more accommodating to people of determination? That is from Sultan Al-Qasimi.
Well, thank you, Sultan. Sultan always, he's a dear friend. He always makes my life difficult. So let me try to answer his question. Before jumping into that question, I just want to add to what Mike and Sharifa said about, how do we become more responsible as societies, and how can we, empower the people with determination, and how can we all benefit from that? Going to the Special Olympics, for example, and having all of these athletes come and participate. And what I heard from Sharifa is, the follow-up that is happening after the Special Olympics was over. Okay, how do we move forward? What did we benefit from that, from hosting that event? What did we, what are the lessons that we learned in order to make our societies better by including the determined and prepare them for, post high school? Okay, what do we do for them when they're adults? How can we support them? Sharifa and Mike, you said something which is very valid. It is, why are we looking at, the weaknesses of people rather than looking at the strengths? I mean, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, including the determined, including autistic, kids and adults. If you combine their strengths with our strengths, we become very strong. Don't just look at, okay, he's a liability, or he's, you know, what should I do with this individual because he has a certain disability, or he's autistic, or he's a human being, he's an individual. He is someone that needs support. We've got to support them. We've got to give them, you know, the fundamentals that would make them stronger, would make them, you know, more productive in society.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our societies, I think we need more awareness. We need, as Sharifa said, we need centers for, you know, for adults. We need, you know, private sector engagement and involvement in providing opportunities, you know, for people with, you know, certain, you know, disabilities, or, you know, who are autistic. You know, these people are very valuable for the society. You know, these are, you know, they deserve to live, and they deserve the support like any other individual like us. You know, they, you know, looking at Mike and how, you know, Jaden's relationship with Mike, you know, you can see the love, you can see the care, you can see, you know, this is pure love, this is pure care. You know, Mike, when he joined, you know, Parliament in 2006, 14 years ago, with all of the, you know, the occupation he had by, you know, by being a politician, yet he still found the time to care for his child, okay, to be, you know, to speak about, you know, people with autism, to engage with the, you know, with societies, and to engage with the, you know, entities, not only in Canada, but globally, to try and raise awareness, to give what he has gained, you know, in terms of the experience which he has, having to deal with an autistic child who is now, you know, a happy 25-year-old son, you know. So I think this is, you know, we have to learn from one another. Sharifa, you said over the last 7 years since the, you know, the documentary has been produced until today, the UAE has been by far, you know, the most advanced country in our region when it comes to people of determination. But I think, you know, we still have a long way to go. You know, we shouldn't stop just by hosting the Special Olympics and, you know, being, you know, having, you know, opening a center I saw a couple of days ago in Al Ain for autism, you know, having the New England Center in Abu Dhabi, having the Dubai Autism Center, and having other centers in Sharjah and other Emirates. I think we need more of those, but not only for kids. I think we need things that cater for, you know, post, you know, or, you know, higher education, or, you know, post high school. And I think we all have to come as society, as, you know, as a whole, to support the people of determination.
Agreed. And, you know, on that subject, another adult with autism we've just heard from writing in the chat, Dr. Jawhar Dawood, Muhammad's father, hello, are watching this evening. I want to just give a quick update on Muhammad. Muhammad is 21. He graduated from a 4-year training program for adults at Center in Dubai. He acquired social and employment skills. He's practicing Arabic calligraphy. Muhammad was always a beautiful writer, and he is participating in the Quran competitions, which you saw him read in the film. I'm really happy. He's still participating in the Quran competitions and winning many awards. Mabruk Muhammad, hello, Dr. Jawhar, it's very lovely to hear from you. And also, Saif is watching, so hi Saif. We're all very happy to see you, and his mother, who also is a star in the film, and has a very powerful line at the end about, you know, inclusion. Mike, if I can come to you, the issue that we not just with kids, but with adults, is we're talking about, you know, we need more inclusivity, we need more understanding from corporations, we need more efforts, but there is, you know, the block is always a stigma, right? There is a stigma, there is a lack of awareness, and we make films like As One to raise awareness, and you've been to so many autism awareness events. What have you found in your time that has really effectively battles the stigma? What do you think?
I would say, first of all, introduction to Jateen, or introduction to somebody that has autism. And I think, at least in North America, because my experience in terms of living life with a child with autism is limited to my experience, of course, in North America. But over the last couple of decades in particular, there have been way more efforts towards inclusion and because of and awareness, and because of that, almost everybody knows someone who has autism, someone who's on the autism spectrum. I think a key thing that we're even now learning here in North America is from autistic Canadians or North Americans themselves, who say, who want their voice to be heard. And so they don't just want others talking about it or telling the story. Since 2013, it's hard to believe that the film was from 2013, but from then till now, I imagine if you were to do the film today, you'd probably do it a little bit differently even than you did it in 2013, right? And I think about the way I communicate today versus the way we communicated in 2015 or 2012. And one of my learnings is that we need to be even more deliberate at including as many autistic voices in the conversation as we can. In Jaden's case, because he's nonverbal, it takes sort of prompting and listening. But one of the things I've learned from Jaden is I've become a much better listener more broadly, because it takes some time to really hear what Jaden says. But, and sometimes what he says isn't said through words, it's said through expressions and body language and actions. And so we really do, though, need to listen to those autistic voices, I think, more and more. And as we listen to them, we'll know what they want to do, but we'll also hear them tell us what they're good at. And as Fahad said, will, as a society around the world, be better off because of the skills and abilities that we unlock at that place. And Sharifa, you made a really important point about, you talked about a slippery slope, or a slope that kids come to when they become adults. Sometimes we hear parents even describe it as a cliff, just falling off the cliff. At the end of school, you have all of this support till the end of your school years. And we have to do a much better job of equipping companies, employers, to be able to hire people with autism and other developmental disabilities. And those employers want to. We just have to provide them evidence, provide them explanations and tools to use to make sure that we can include everybody in everything that we do. Right.
Fahad, if I can come to you, in terms of the UAE, are we battling that stigma? Have you seen any changes through time, are we in the same place? Where do you see the UAE at the moment?
No, I've seen a lot of change, Hana, in the UAE. We've seen more awareness. We've seen, more centers open. Whether it's for autism or people with people of determination, we've seen more participation within the society from whether those kids or whether they are adults. We've seen for example when Sheikh Mohammed announced in 2017 changing the phrase to the people of determination or determined. At that time the UAE team in Special Olympics actually had far better results than the other teams, of the UAE which participated in the Olympics. They always came back with gold medals and silver medals, and they were always champions. When Team Canada participated in last year, they had 109 athletes. They came back home with 90 gold medals. They beat, unfortunately, the UAE team, which had 209 athletes. They got 64 gold medals. And before I met them, and I asked them, so what do you want to do with UAE? He said, we're going there to get gold. We're going there to come back with gold. And they were very happy to come back with the with the 90 medals. So I think we've come a long way since 1971 in the UAE. But I still believe there's still a long way ahead. And it's by, you know, joining forces, working together. You know, Sharifa can't do it by herself. Mike can't do it by himself here in Canada. You know, Image Nation, you know, together with Sharifa and, you know, other families producing that, you know, amazing documentary in 2013. A single family by itself couldn't have done that. But when you bring them all together, they are more comfortable in sharing their stories. And I think it's very important to learn from these stories. Mike, you said in 2013, we produced that documentary. If we were to produce it today, we would have done it differently.
Yeah.
Because of what we learned throughout the 7 years. I mean, this is, you know, this is a learning experience. It doesn't end, you know, today. It keeps going. 5, 6, 7 years from now, we're going to look at 2020. And, you know, we're going to talk maybe about, you know, the discussion that we've had. We're going to talk about the Special Olympics that we hosted. But we're going to say, okay, 2025, 2026, you know, we are a step ahead than where we were in 2020. 2030 will be better than 2025. But we have to keep going. We can't just stop and say, you know, we've reached, you know, the ideal situation where we want to be. Because this keeps, you know, we will still have people, you know, autistic kids being born. We will still have people with certain disabilities being born. You know, it's not that you need to you're born with it. You could have, you know, a car accident or something happens to you, and you become someone who has, you know, a difficulty in walking or in sitting, or, you know, a mental disability that comes because of that. So it doesn't end here. I think we have to keep going. I'm very happy with where we've reached at the UAE, but I still, you know, as Sharifa said, we have to keep going. We have to, you know, keep the momentum. We have to talk to people like Mike, you know, learn from his experience in Canada, learn from his involvement with other societies in the US and other parts of the world. Because if we don't share our experiences, I think we will be stuck somewhere. And we can learn from someone else's experience and save a lot of time because of what he has done. Thank you.
Well, can I just build on that for a second, just to say, you know, in terms of learnings, you know, today's November 18th, 2020, and I'm a big fan of just saying, here we are, what are we going to do today? You know, I want to be better tomorrow than we are today. And there are tens of millions of people around the world, children around the world, that are not included in school systems. They are completely hidden because of the stigma around autism and other developmental disabilities. That is not okay. And if we wait to be perfect before we act on that, we're going to be waiting for a long time. There's lots of debates that we can get caught up on, and what to do, or you know, who should lead, or whatever the case might be. But the reality is that kids will be better off when they're included in a school system. Kids will be better off when parents and caregivers understand what's going on, the sort of neurodevelopmental reasons for what's happening. We'll be better off when there are people like Sharifa in every small part of the world working using evidence-based ideas and therapies to help people. And so I appreciate, Fahad, you're weighing in on that, because I think that this is something that really drives me right now, is an impatience, almost, in a sense. I'm emboldened and encouraged by watching films like this. I mean, it's just fantastic, but it also tells me that we've got a long ways to go in other parts of the world, and together we can lead alongside autistic Canadians, autistic people from the UAE and other parts of the world, to help those that need help to unlock the potential, their full potential. So very excited to be part of this whole conversation. Jaden's back. Hey, Jaden, does that excite you too? Yeah.
I think we're very excited to have Jaden on as well. You know, as you say, awareness is about being around people with autism, you know, and I thank you, Jaden, for coming onto the screen with us. It was an interesting thing that was said. I agree with you completely, Mike. people with, you know, we talked about this before, people with autism should be representing themselves. And so if I was to make the film today, that would definitely be a move away from the parents speaking and more of the children speaking. It's a learning curve that we're all going on all the time. And, you know, I agree with you all, the impact of work of Sharifa and people like Sharifa is immense, and we need a lot more Sharifas in the world. Sharifa, I personally have seen the impact that you do as an individual on a group of people, and I go to Sharifa, she knows all the time, whenever I meet a family who needs advice and guidance, and I've seen the ripple effect of your personal impact, and I thank you, because you're so committed and so dedicated and in your work. And I was thrilled to hear that you are pursuing your PhD, because I know that that is just going to increase the impact that you have. So I would like to just, if you could talk a little bit about what your work you're going to go into now.
I just want to say thank you so much for the kind words, because when I started my journey, it was through a story from a parent, just like Mike, you know, where they didn't know what to do. They were hopeless. And for me, that was absurd, because humans can learn. There's no ending to it, you know, and that just pushed me to continue my studies, to learn more on, you know, research, how to make research to be better in my skills, so that I can be not just an advocate, but also a researcher that can add value to this field as a whole, nationally and internationally. And as we all know, policy making depends a lot on research to fill in the gap between theory and practice. So if we are not equipped with those research skills, and we just get people from abroad to do that research in our culture, in our countries, well, there's so much way that we can go. So I think it's important for locals in the United Arab Emirates to continue to build these kind of skills. And I'm very lucky to be involved in a PhD course that is a university that's based in United Arab Emirates, you know, and that for me, it's a huge, huge accomplishment. I'm very proud that my country has a PhD focusing on education, inclusive special education. And I think I'm so proud. I want to thank the university, the British University in Dubai, and all the leaders that made this happen. So I think definitely when I wanted to get into this field, I thought that was brilliant, because throughout my research, it kind of fits perfectly with the current, I don't know if you guys know about the, currently there is the national policy to empower people of determination that was currently launched by the UAE Ministry of Community Development. So that was super exciting for everyone. It was all over in the news. And a lot of families were very interested to see what would this national policy can do for the families and individuals themselves. So the national policy, of course, covers 6 different pillars, and I'm sure that you know, we can share resources if the listeners want to learn more about it. And what I loved about that national policy when I read about it was that it's building on 6 important pillars. And it was just beautiful how they put it. One is the health and rehabilitation, education is another, vocational rehabilitation and employment, other is outreach, and the other is social protection and family empowerment, and the 6th is public life and culture sports. I mean, they covered everything that we talked right now, basically. And I think that was wonderful. And I just tied it with my current you know, interest in my research, which is basically in the education, enhancing inclusion. And I'm so happy that Mike has also shared with us his great work that they're doing with making education more inclusive, whether it's public, vocational, or higher education, using and through evidence-based practices. That's why I'm always calling for more research to be done to be able to apply it in our real life, you know, and benefit those families and individuals that can use it. The second interest that I really am also interested in, and hopefully I can expand my research, is the vocational training and employability. You know, how we can basically help the environment that the individual will go to. There's a beautiful saying, and I always keep it in mind, that when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. You know, so having that environment that's rich in those resources, not just human resources or building resources, but as well as training resources. How can we make our trainings better to support individuals in a work placement? And I think for me, that is something that I'm, you know, very interested to see in collaboration, whether it's nationally or internationally.
That's fantastic. You know, I know I just want to say to everybody the importance of that. We had a very successful course at Image Nation. We have Arab Film Studio, and I know that one of our candidates in the program benefited so much because Sharifa was very great at training the film crew and the editors on how to work you know, and how to modify their practices, and they flourished and created a beautiful, beautiful film. So, you know, I advise everyone who's watching, if they want to work with people with autism, please do, and please reach out for the right help, because, you know, beautiful things can happen. I know, Mike, you want to try and share, have you got a video with Jaden?
Yeah, is that okay if I share? They're going back, it goes back a few years to his last year of high school, but I want to show what happens when people kind of grasp those skills and the skills and abilities I was talking about, the potential, sort of the power of inclusion. So this ran on the CTV national news back in, well, back when Jaden was, I think, well, they'll say his age, but I think 17. And hopefully it plays okay. I use it in a lot of my presentations, and it's 2 minutes long. So hopefully you see a black screen right now and you'll be able to hear it okay. If you can't hear it okay, just someone yell and let me know.
Now, that stigma often follows children into adulthood, holding them back from their full potential. But the tide may be turning. Tonight we have the story of one young man who shows what can be achieved if given a chance. Here's CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief, Janet Dirks.
When it comes to putting away library books, Jaden Lake leaves others in the dust.
Jaden, can you do these ones too?
He's not just fast, he's accurate.
He's better than us at most of these tasks. He just knows exactly where everything goes and how to do it.
Jaden has autism. He was diagnosed when he was 2. Now 19, he volunteers at this school library in Edmonton. While he's nonverbal, he's an enthusiastic worker.
You like working in the library, Jaden?
Jaden also catalogs and labels and works with computers.
He could work in an office or a bank or, you know, anywhere where there is numbers and organization.
He's excited to work. He's excited to keep working.
Jaden's father is Edmonton MP Mike Lake. He wants employers to give adults with autism a chance.
He wouldn't be able to do a job interview. That would be a challenge for him. So if he wanted to work in a library or a warehouse or somewhere where he would be able to use these skills, he would need somebody to help him. He would need somebody to communicate for him and explain what it is that he's good at.
Research shows adults with autism spectrum disorder are underemployed. An Ontario study revealed only 13% work full-time. Just 6% have part-time jobs. In Calgary, Garth Johnson wants to change that. His company connects businesses with adults with autism in software and website testing.
Dedication, commitment, focus. They will do this job again and again and again for a long time, a lot longer than we would do jobs, and still love it.
Advocates for people with autism say it's not about charity, it's about creating opportunities, and workplaces stand to benefit most of all. Janet Dirks, CTV News, Calgary.
So you get a pretty good idea. I'm just going to close my screen here before something else starts playing there. But you get a pretty good idea of what that skill set is. You know, when you see Jaden and the way we're interacting here today, He's very endearing. He's very connected when we're talking, but you know, that doesn't define Jaden. He has these skill sets. You need to get to know him to understand what his capabilities are and where he's awesome. And when it comes to the concrete world and putting these books away, it's funny, in the school library, he'd be running with a stack of books and he'd be putting them all away. And then he would see a book on a shelf that was some kid had put in the wrong place. As he was running by, out of hundreds of books, he'd see this book, grab it, and without skipping a beat, he'd put it in the right place, because he's got a way of seeing the world that if you've ever seen him do a puzzle or working with Lego or doing a word search, it's amazing. He's sitting here on his computer right now, or his phone right now. He's just pulled it out and he's playing a game right now. And some of the games that he plays, he's fantastic at. And so, again, I can't reiterate enough that if we include every person in, you know, whatever settings we can, the goal ultimately should be, we've got 80, even in North America, 85%, some say, of people with autism are not employed here in Canada or in North America. You know, that's a huge loss, because we're losing those unbelievable talents, and there's a gap in the way that we do things because we're not working hard enough to include them. So hopefully seeing that video and sort of getting a chance to sort of visualize what I'm talking about helps.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Mike. I really appreciate you sharing that video, because I think it shows the world, as you say, a real example of how autism in our society can work in the workforce. And so I think that's a fantastic point to leave. I couldn't have, the video, pictures speak louder than words. I always say it. So videos speak loudly. Thank you to my panelists tonight. Thank you for joining me, Fahad, Mike, and Sharifa. I've had a lovely evening. I hope everybody else has had watching. Thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Office of Public Diplomacy at Image Nation. I believe that this is the 4th, as I said, Art of Public Diplomacy screening, and there will be another one next month. So I hope you will join in on watching that one, and have a good evening, a good morning, and a good afternoon in Canada.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for including us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.